It's 2:15 on the 21st of September 2025. In the South China Sea at Vanguard Bank, the night feels tight and airless. Aboard the USS Louisiana, SSBN 743, red lights glow, decks vibrate with hurried feet. Multiple fast movers bearing 120. Sonar calls clean, clipped, already louder than anyone wants. Alarms ripple through compartments, hatches dog down. Coffee spills across a console, and a sailor wipes it without looking. Above the waves, the Chinese carrier Shandong throws aircraft into the dark, while a Type 52D destroyer rakes the sea with active sonar bright pings like hammer blows. Electronic noise blooms, ghost contacts multiply. The fire control party tracks, cross-checks, breathes shallow. Counter-detection drills snap into motion, decoys prepped, quiet turns ordered, crew voices dropping to whispers that feel like prayers. A tremor of light touches the horizon, unknown launches, low and fast. The next minutes decide everything. Stay invisible in black water, or be found, fixed and finished before dawn. The South China Sea isn't just water, it's a lifeline. Each day, tankers and container ships push through lanes that keep lights on, shelves stocked, and paychecks flowing. That's why the USS Louisiana patrols near Vanguard Bank, close to a US-flagged supply hub nicknamed the Freedom Rig. Beijing calls these waters indisputable. Washington calls that claim impossible. Neither side blinks. Both sides listen for the first misstep. 2 weeks ago, Chinese Coast Guard cutters boxed in rig tenders. Then a militia trawler cut cables while drones buzzed overhead. What began as bumping and blinding turned into live warning shots. Since then, the Chinese carrier Shandong has cruised with a Type 52D screen, broadcasting strength. The U.S. response? Quiet persistence, subs unseen. Patrol craft visible. And a promise to keep trade moving. Deterrence only works if the other side believes you'll act. Inside Louisiana, sailors feel the weight. A launch from the wrong bearing could draw 2 nuclear powers into open war. Insurance spikes, oil futures wobble. Families in San Diego and Shanghai read the same breaking banner and hold their breath. In allied capitals, phones stay warm on speaker. Every minister asking the same question: if the rig is hit, do we hold the line or widen it? The captain's guidance is crisp. Defend the rig. De-escalate if we can. End it fast if we must. Clear goals keep crews from freezing under pressure. If you were in that chair, orders tight, time tighter. Do you strike first to stop a bigger hit? Or hold fire and risk a fatal delay? Tap 1 to defend now. Or 9 to wait and risk it. Your call mirrors theirs. The sea is moments from answering. 2:42. The radar room goes dead quiet before the storm. Multiple launches bearing 120, altitude low. The operator's voice cracks through the intercom. In seconds, the USS Louisiana shifts from stealth to survival. Compartment seal. Fire control hums alive. The first Chinese salvo, likely anti-ship cruise missiles, rips through the air toward the Freedom Rig, leaving white tails over black water. The captain doesn't wait for confirmation. Launch countermeasures. Prepare Tomahawk Block 4. Surface mode. The submarine breaks silence, rising to periscope depth. On deck, decoys release a bloom of heat and noise meant to pull enemy radars away. Aboard the Shandong, command chatter spikes. They know something invisible just surfaced. VLS tubes 1 and 2, ready, fire. The Tomahawks leap skyward, their tails carving light into the storm. The first wave targets radar arrays on the Shandong and a nearby Type 52D destroyer. The second salvo spreads wide, striking at launch positions along the Chinese line. Explosions light the horizon like a sudden sunrise. Minutes stretch. Counterstrikes come fast depth charges from a Type 056 Corvette. Then active sonar bursts hammering closer. The crew braces, listening to the metallic thud of pressure waves. Every man and woman knows the math. One direct hit, and the sub becomes a coffin. The XO whispers, "They're not searching, they're guessing." The captain replies, calm and clipped, "Then let them guess wrong." Above, Allied surveillance drones relay footage to Pacific Command fireballs rising, the Shandong listing slightly. 2 destroyers dead in the water. Communications confirm 5 wounded aboard Louisiana, none critical. Relief flickers, but only for a heartbeat. More contacts appear inbound. Unmanned subsurface drones, fast and small, racing in from the north like silver darts. The captain orders a silent turn using the wreckage's sonar clutter as cover. The sub slides through the debris field, invisible again. Over comms, the message to the fleet is brief. Freedom rig secure. Enemy surface group disabled. Counterattack complete. But no one cheers yet. The radar tech whispers, "New returns, closing fast." The captain exhales once. Round 2, 2:58. The ocean feels alive, boiling with metal and intent. The USS Louisiana glides through darkness, every sound magnified. Sonar picks up the new threat. Unmanned underwater drones, small but armed, programmed to hunt noise. They weave between wrecks, learning as they move. One wrong ping and they'll swarm. The captain lowers his voice. Keep it under 90 decibels, trim depth 5 meters. The hull creaks, every screw turn is measured, every breath counted. In the torpedo room, sailors load counter-drone charges, short-range bursts designed to detonate just before contact. If they get inside 200 yards, we're done, the weapons officer mutters. A flicker on sonar, then another. Contact, multiple, closing fast. The captain gives the nod. The first charge fires, a muted thump. 2 drones disappear, 3 more slip through. One brushes the hull, scraping metal like a knife on bone. The entire crew freezes. Silence returns, unbearable. Then boom. A charge detonates near the aft, sending a shockwave through the ship. Lights flicker, alarms howl. Minor hull breach, section 4. Sealing now. The captain stays calm. Flood ballast. Use the thermal layer. The sub sinks deeper, sliding into a colder current that bends sonar signals away. Chinese destroyers above, blind for a moment, fire depth charges in wide arcs, guessing again. Explosions echo through the black, water trembling like air in a storm. Enemy sonar painting us again, sonar calls out. The captain glances at his watch. Let them waste ammo. Then we strike. Outside the wreck of a Type 50, 2D glows, faintly metal ghosts drifting in silence. Inside, tension cuts through the red-lit control room. They've survived 2 rounds, but both sides now know. The next hit decides everything. The helm throws a knuckle turn, hard rudder, sudden turbulence to shake off the trail. Noisemakers spit from the tail, carving a false wake through bubbles and shattered steel. In sickbay, a corpsman tapes a cheek gash, murmurs, "You'll tell your kids about this one." The sailor nods once and sprints back to post. If the next minute holds, the rig lives. If it doesn't, a map redraws for a decade. If you believe Louisiana can hold one more assault, hit 1 the comments. If you think China's next strike turns the tide, hit 9 and don't forget to subscribe before the next impact. 3:14. The sea turns unpredictable. Sonar returns begin to fade, not from jamming, but from silence. They've stopped pinging, sonar says quietly. That's worse than noise. Silence means planning. The Chinese fleet isn't retreating, it's waiting. A faint vibration trembles through the hull. The XO looks up. That's not surface fire, that's below us. New contacts appear, multiple, small and diving fast. These aren't drones. They're mini subs, manned and packed with explosives. The captain's expression hardens. They're coming to finish us up close. The command room lights dim automatically. The crew switches to passive tracking, their displays glowing faint blue. No one breathes. The first mini-sub drifts within 400 yards, scanning in slow arcs. Louisiana holds steady, masked by cold layers and wreckage static. Then, one of the drones from earlier still active bumps a fragment of debris. The sonar ping ricochets off it, drawing the mini-sub's sensors. It's locking! The captain makes the call. Deploy acoustic decoy 3. A compressed pop, then silence. 30 seconds later, the ocean erupts. Shockwaves roll through the hull as 2 mini-subs detonate on the false signature. 1 more remains, closing fast. The XO's voice breaks. Too close to spoof. The captain doesn't blink. Then we move. He orders an emergency ascent not to escape, but to strike. The sub angles upward, rising under the chaos. Torpedo tubes open. Fire 1. A Mach 48 launches, slicing through the depths, hitting the last mini-sub dead center. For a moment, everything goes still. Then sonar picks up something massive shifting above the Shandong, burning but alive, turning back toward the fight. The captain exhales, low and steady. She's not done. 3:27. The water above boils with light. The Chinese carrier Shandong deck, scarred and smoking, launches her final counterstrike. 2 J-15 fighters roar off the deck, guided by the last operational destroyer. Their target isn't the Louisiana, it's the Freedom rig itself. Take the rig, and the U.S. loses the moral high ground in one flash. Inside the submarine, the captain studies the map. They're going for the rig. The Tenno voice is tight. We can't reach aircraft. The captain's tone turns steel. Then we sink what launched them. He orders the sub to rise to firing depth. Sonar pulses steady. They can hear the carrier's screws turning, slow but defiant. Range 8,000 yards, sonar reports. Closing. Fire tubes 3 and 4. 2 Mach 48 torpedoes launch in near unison, carving white trails through the black. The first strikes amidships, the second hits the aft elevator. Shandong lists hard to port as secondary explosions tear across her deck, but victory comes at a cost. 1 J-15 dives through smoke, its pilot shouting, "For the motherland!" He fires 2 anti-ship missiles before crashing into the sea. "Missiles inbound!" Sonar yells. "Full dive, deploy countermeasures!" The Louisiana plunges, water screaming along her hull. Decoys burst false suns in the deep. 1 missile veers off, the other detonates close. The blast shudders through the sub, lights flicker, metal groans. Power fluctuation, reactor stable, engineering calls. For 30 endless seconds, the world is chaos, then silence. The sonar clears. Shandong's signal fades to static. Enemy pings vanish. In control, hands unclench from rails they didn't know they were gripping. Damage? Minor flooding. Stable. Repair teams snake through tight corridors, passing hoses and patches hand to hand. A sailor steadies an injured crewmate, then jogs back to a valve wheel that sticks on the first turn and yields on the second. Over comms, a clipped report arrives from surface assets. Freedom rig intact. Fires contained. The room exhales. Above, debris drifts down like metallic snow. The sky turns gray and empty. The captain finally breathes. He keys the mic to the task force. Primary threat neutralized. Rig secure. Commencing egress. Then softer, to no one in particular. "It's over," he says quietly. For now. 4:18. Dawn crawls across the South China Sea. The battle is over, but the silence that follows feels heavier than the explosions that came before. Smoke drifts over the waves, where the remains of war float quietly, steel, oil, and silence. The Louisiana holds position at safe depth, her crew exhausted but alive. No one speaks for a full minute. In Washington, the news breaks before confirmation. U.S. sub sinks Chinese carrier. Markets shudder. Diplomats scramble. Beijing denies defeat, calling it an unprovoked attack. American officials counter. A lawful act of defense. Neither statement tells the whole truth. In truth, both sides crossed a line they swore to avoid. The Freedom rig remains intact, but the ocean feels changed. Insurance firms freeze new routes. Satellite images of wreckage flood the internet. Dissected frame by frame, in living rooms across the Pacific, people whisper about how close the world came to a war it might not survive next time. Inside Louisiana, the captain walks the narrow corridors. He stops by the observation port, murky water beyond, reflecting red lights inside. "Hold the line," he whispers, though no one is there to hear. The crew moves quietly, securing gear, tending wounds, sending coded reports home. They've done their job, won the battle, but everyone knows this victory might only buy time. Allied phones buzz from Manila to Tokyo. A carrier group diverts. Patrol aircraft spread like stitches across the map. A hotline call promises restraint, then adds conditions. On board, the chaplain writes names on a scrap of tape and sticks it to a bulkhead, a small, stubborn ritual against the dark. Analysts will name it the Freedom Rig Incident, a 40-minute clash that reshaped the balance of the South China Sea. Some will call it deterrence, others escalation. History will decide which. If you think the strike restored peace, hit 1-inch the comments. If you believe it only opened the next chapter of conflict, hit 9 and subscribe so you're here when that chapter begins. It's 9:23 local time on the 26th of August 2025. In the South China Sea, the radar screen aboard USS Princeton suddenly lights up with multiple unknown contacts. A sharp alarm pierces through the ship, echoing down steel corridors. Sailors slam doors shut, running to their stations. On deck, the crew of the cruiser braces as messages flash across the fleet network. Possible hostile air launch bearing east. Far out on the horizon, the silhouette of China's carrier Shandong emerges with escorts in tight formation. Its J-15 fighters are already airborne, weaving against the sunlight. At the same moment, underwater sensors hint at something, lurking a possible Yuan-class submarine. Within seconds, the U.S. strike group stirs alive. USS Nimitz readies her air wing, destroyers pivot to defensive stations. Above, E-2D Hawkeye circle, relaying everything through the Cooperative Engagement Capability System. One ship's eyes now belong to the entire fleet. Everyone knows, the next few minutes could decide who rules the sea, the sky, and the depths. The South China Sea is not just a label, it's one of the planet's busiest lifelines. Each day, tankers and container ships squeeze through narrow lanes, carrying fuel, food, electronics, and parts that keep homes lit and factories moving. For the United States, the job is simple to say and hard to do. Keep these lanes open. That's why USS Nimitz, Princeton, Chunghoon, and Kidd are on station today. Across the water, China sails carrier Shandong with a Type 52D destroyer and escorts. J-15 fly combat air patrol overhead. A Yuan-class submarine likely stalks from below, hunting for gaps. The message is clear. Pressure the U.S. group, unsettle the region, and test how far Washington will go to protect free navigation. Capitals from Tokyo to Manila are watching. For Americans, the stakes go beyond pride. If a convoy is delayed or pushed away, insurance can spike, routes bend, and costs hit families home. If a ship is damaged, investors freeze, and allies question U.S. guarantees. Credibility is a weapon. Losing it could take years to rebuild. So the objective is firm. Show presence, avoid accidental shots, and hold the line with layered defense and clear comms. E-2D Hawkeyes stitch the picture through the cooperative engagement capability, turning separate sensors into one set of eyes. RC-135 listen for telltale signals. On deck, an MQ-25 rolls to feed the fighters, while a Virginia-class submarine slips ahead to screen the carriers. Every sailor knows the cost of a mistake. A loose call, a missed radar return, or a rash maneuver could light the fuse. This is a contest of will, as much as firepower. Two navies, two visions of who sets the rules here. If you think the U.S. holds control, press 1. If you believe Beijing's push flips the balance, press 9. 9:47 local time. The air grows tense as the first blips multiply across the fleet screens. USS Princeton's combat systems officer calls them out. 12, now 14 inbound fighters. The J-15 from Shandong angled toward the American formation low and fast, launched the air wing. FA-18EF Super Hornets leap from USS Nimitz, followed by stealthy F-35C. An E-2D Hawkeye keeps the picture stitched together, while EA-18G Growlers split off to jam radar modes and data links. Tanking tracks form as an MQ-25 Stingray circles quietly, ready to feed fuel to the first cap sweep. On the surface, USS Kidd and Chunghoon set their VLS for quick reaction. Princeton takes the net lead through CEC and issues a single rule: weapons tight. The defense web is armed but silent. The point is to deny a shot, not start one. Tubes stay closed, safety's on. In the ether, the Growlers go to work. noise blankets, the J-15 radars, deceptive angle smear returns. Pilots hunting for clean locks instead see drifting ghosts. One section climbs to burn through, another drops lower to escape the haze. Both moves cost time and fuel. The F-35C stay cold and patient, letting the jamming do the heavy lifting. High above, an RC-135 rivet joint listens. Each Chinese call, mode change, and workaround is recorded and mapped. Back in Hawaii and Washington, analysts turn the live feed into a playbook. Who leads, who follows, which tactic comes first when the pressure rises. Below, a Virginia-class submarine edges toward the Chinese screen and briefly broaches masts up, hull still hidden by chop just long enough to be noticed. It is a calculated whisper. We are here. Farther out, the suspected Yuan-class sub shifts course and depth, choosing distance over a close pass it cannot control. Picture update. The Hawkeye reports, multiple groups maneuvering, no weapons inbound. The American fighters hold a firm line, fueled by the MQ-25 and guided by the E-2D. After 20 hard minutes, the J-15 begin to blink low fuel warnings. With radar picture degraded and the US screen unbroken, the Chinese packages peel away to the east to tank and reset. The sea is the same, but the mood has changed. The message is received. The US group is ready, connected, and calm, and Beijing will have to try something else. 10:08 local time. The horizon looks calm, but every console hums. Fresh returns bloom, new J-15 groups lifting and fanning wide. The Chinese surface group tightens. A Type 52D slides closer, just inside the US picture, daring a response. USS Nimitz adds speed for quick deck cycles. Princeton shifts a few degrees south to pull the threat across the strongest sensors. Kidd and Chung Hoon widen spacing for crossing coverage, quiet chess moves with big effects. Net check. The E-2D refreshes the composite track over CEC and Link 1-6. F-35C stay mostly passive, watching for tiny course changes that betray intent. Growlers switch techniques, mixing noise and smart deception to warp altitude and speed cues on J-15 scopes. Chinese helicopters lift and run, dipping sonar patterns well outside torpedo range, signaling the undersea fight matters too. The Virginia-class boat has already shifted. Its brief exposure worked. Now it lurks west of Shandong, exactly where escorts hate to look away. A pop-up group appears, fast and low. Princeton calls it, then tightens MCON again. The order holds, weapons tight. Nulka decoys are loaded, chaff and flares ready, but nothing leaves the rails. Discipline over drama. RC-135 rivet joint logs a surge of chatter as controllers juggle fuel and altitude blocks. Jamming steals seconds from every decision. Seconds become miles, miles become fuel. The J-15 won't have when a merge would matter. On deck, sailors breathe with the scope. The Type 52D shows its bow, then tucks behind its screen. J-15 probe, pull, and reset. Their tracks a restless scribble around the American box. Each probe is met with position, patience, and a harder radar problem. At 10:31, the pattern breaks. Low fuel cautions ripple through the Chinese fighters. The support element sits too far out, timing shaved by the E-2D and Growlers. One by one, J-15 swing east to tank, and the surface group eases back to safer spacing. No missiles, no gunfire, just pressure returned with steadier pressure. If you think the US line held firm here, press 1. If you believe Beijing's push forced the group to blink, press 9. And subscribe to catch the next move. 10:42 local time. The pattern looks set until the sea lifts. A Virginia-class submarine pops to the surface inside visual range of the Chinese screen. Masts up, wake foaming, then slides under in seconds. No hail, no shot, just a shock. Immediate effect. Helicopters claw up and begin tight dipping sonar orbits. The Type 52D goes active, trading stealth for certainty, and in doing so, makes itself a bright beacon. The E-2D marks bearings. RC-135 crews log every call sign as the screen pivots to guard Shandong's vulnerable flank. Nimitz capitalizes. And MQ-25 extends the fuel ladder. F-35C eased to the edges of the Chinese picture. Quiet and patient. Growlers shift from brute noise to tailored deception that nudges altimeters and airspeeds, small pushes that waste time. Below, the Virginia doesn't chase. It leaves a hint of presence and fades west. That glimpse alone forces the suspected Yuan-class sub to choose: press and risk being fixed, or yield space. It chooses space. Tubes stay closed. Fire control solutions are built, checked, and held. Up high, J-15 try to reset another probe, but fuel margins are thin again. Tankers sit farther east than planned. Their timing bent by minutes, the jamming shaved away. The surface screen tightens to protect Shandong and loosens its ability to push. The twist isn't a missile or a dogfight. It's a surfacing one audacious move that flips the board without lighting a fuse. The message lands. The U.S. group can threaten sky, sea, and undersea at once, while still refusing the first shot. Beijing must now decide whether escalation helps or only exposes more. 11:02 local time. One last push from the east. New J-15 lift off Shandong in a tight group, while a Type 52D edges forward and helos spread wide. The U.S. box holds shape. Wind over Nimitz's deck builds, launch and recovery cycles tighten to minutes as crews tighten every step. Picture clean. The E-2D calls. Pop-up group, very low. Princeton drags the screen 3 degrees and repeats the rule. Weapons tight. Kidd and Chung-hoon comb the threat axis, creating crossing angles without crossing a line. Hatches clack. Canisters are staged. Safeties stay on. Growlers slide high and offset. Jamming turns surgical false speed cues, bent altitudes, and tiny slips that blur judgment. F-35C stay cold, painting the formation without a broadcast. The Chinese fighters drop lower, hunting cleaner returns and finding clutter and ghosts. Controller calls step on one another, then pause and repeat. RC-135 crews log every hesitation. 11-9. The Type 52D flashes active again, choosing certainty and becoming the easiest thing to find at sea. West of Shandong, a Virginia-class submarine answers with silence and pulls Chinese eyes the wrong way. Standby decoys, Princeton orders. Nulka lids lift, then stop. On the destroyers, CIWS barrels track and wind, red lights steady. No trigger squeeze. Discipline is the point. Contrails cross, then break. One J-15 climbs to burn through the haze and loses minutes. Another drops to the deck and bleeds fuel. The F-35C shadow and hold. The aim is to deny the shot, not trade one. 11-14. Bingo starting on multiple groups, the Hawkeye reports. Tankers sit farther east than planned. Minutes shaved by jamming tip the balance. The package can probe or recover, but not both. The surface duel becomes posture. The Type 52D shows its bow, then hides again. Kidd and Chung-hoon mirror the move. Nimitz turns into the wind. The deck runs like a metronome. 11-18. Low fuel lights win the argument. J-15 peel away in pairs, noses east. Helicopters tighten and drift back toward their escorts. The American box doesn't shift an inch. No missiles, no gunfire. Just pressure met with cooler pressure and a message in patience. Access denied today. If restraint won, press 1. If a harder push from Beijing would have cracked the line, press 9 and subscribe for the ending. Result: the Chinese formation eases back. Helicopters tighten around their escorts and the air picture thins. The U.S. group never fires. Beijing's push is spent for today. What mattered wasn't a missile or a dogfight, but timing. Fuel math bent by jamming. A clean picture stitched by the E-2D and a Virginia class sub that forced caution with a glimpse, not a shot. The message at every level. This screen is ready, connected, and patient. For the U.S., the payoff extends beyond the horizon. Layered defense worked without lighting a fuse. MQ-25 kept fighters topped off. Growlers shaved seconds from Chinese decisions. F-35C watched without broadcasting. The cruiser and destroyers held the line on. Weapons tight. The group denied access in air, sea, and undersea while refusing escalation rare and noticed in Tokyo and Manila. The takeaway is measured but real. Carriers can still operate in contested water when risk is managed with discipline and data. Insurance desks breathe easier, shipping schedules hold, and Coast Guards from the Philippines and Vietnam see room to patrol. Credibility, the hardest currency in maritime security, ticks up. For Beijing, today stings. A multi-domain pressure campaign fighters high and low. A surface screen edging forward. A lurking sub met an opponent who didn't blink. Probes burned fuel, not American interceptors. Going active on sonar bought clarity but surrendered initiative. The lone dramatic move came from the other side. A brief surfacing that flipped attention and tempo without a round fired. This doesn't end the contest, it resets it. China can stack shore-based missiles, add tankers, or thicken drone screens. The US can answer with longer jamming loops, tighter refueling ladders, and subs that never show at all. The sea won't stay quiet. Impact. Freedom of navigation holds today, and the region files that away. Next time, the wave could double or arrive with coastal missiles and militia swarms. If you think restraint deterred escalation tonight, press 1. If you believe it invites a sharper test, press 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the next move.